Hi folks, g'day, welcome. Al from the Psy Collective here. Today we're talking about mood related stuff. Specifically what I want to get into is some root cause stuff around mood. Okay, so we're gonna unpack, we can't do everything that could possibly cause your mood to be not great, but we'll unpack some of the major ones. And I guess your job while we're doing this is to just think, okay, that might be relevant to me, that might be relevant to me. And that might open up a pathway to change, okay, which can, potentially help you out. All right, so let's do that. Okay, so, all right, well, what's the usual scenario? You're feeling depressed, you lob up to your doctor. What's your doctor going to do? Your doctor will probably do one or both of two things. Okay, he might prescribe you some medication. Okay. All right, or he may refer you to a psychologist, or he may do both. All right, we'll just kind of start with the medication, and we'll talk about some of the roles psychologists might have as we go. Alrighty, so medication. So that affects mood, yeah, sure. Is that a direct effect? Kind of not. What actually happens with medication, if you like, is it actually manifests its role through something called neurotransmitters. Okie dokie. And that has its sort of mood manifestations. All right, no worries. Okie dokie. What else has an impact on neurotransmitters? Well, nutrition does. Okay, nutrition does. How nutrition has an effect on neurotransmitters is basically that provides you the raw ingredients for your neurotransmitters. We won't get too technical, but basically, if you eat protein, a component of protein is something called tryptophan. Tryptophan gets converted into serotonin. Yep. You need some magnesium, you need some zinc, you need some B6 to get that done. So you can see the nutrition has an impact in various ways on serotonin system, on your neurotransmitters. So it's a whole nother kind of approach. So that's something that may be lacking for some people. I guess nutrition I'd put under a broader category of, if you like, biological factors. All right, so biological factors that can play a role on mood. Sleep, that's a huge one. Okay, so sleep has a massive role in restoration. It's hugely important for the health of your brain. And it is one of the first things that becomes deeply affected in mood states. So sleep needs address. What I would say is take a look at our sleep section on thepsycollective.com, because we really get into some of the ways you can optimize your sleep. And in particular, we talk about why people's arousal might be heightened and why that interferes with sleep, and most importantly, what you can do about that. Okay, so do check that out. All right, so nutrition's important, sleep's important. I guess there are other biological things that are harder to do things about. So maybe you've got a biological predisposition to bipolar disorder or some other mental illness, and that has its own kind of mood issues. And there certainly are lifestyle things that can modify that, but medication's probably going to be important. Okay, what else can have a role? Well, things like drugs. So a lot of drugs will make you feel better when you take them. Okay, so well, that's nice, great. The problem with that is, of course, you kind of need to pay interest on that, and so you feel lousy afterwards, which will crash your mood and can increase the chance of using drugs in the future. What I'd say, I kind of consider drugs, if you like, we could sort of lump them in with sort of toxins in general. So things that can have any kind of neurotoxic effect is going to have a detrimental impact on mood. Okay, pain's a big one. If you've got pain, you probably know all about it. So that's something that really needs addressed, because pain can interfere with sleep, and obviously it directly has a role on mood. Low mood and pain are interlinked in that the worse your mood is, often the higher your appreciation of the pain. And so you get into a bit of a vicious cycle there. All right, what else biological? I guess there's, if you like, the whole rubric of medical problems, your thyroid function. There's tons of things that can happen medically that can have a deep impact on mood. All right, one of the biggest categories I'd say would be autoimmune problems, and it's probably worth having a special category on the role of inflammation in mood. So inflammation has a massive impact on mood. Not so much acute localized inflammation, like if you bang yourself and you get sort of sore and swollen and red. What we're talking about is chronic systemic inflammation. So what's going on in this instance, it's like you've got a low-grade inflammation everywhere, okay? There are various IL-1, IL-6, TNF, alpha. There are various things called cytokines that have this modulating effect, and they directly can affect mood. Often if people get a cold or something, the reason they feel sort of sad and dreadful is actually is the inflammation process more than the actual disease. But the disease certainly can contribute. Okay, what else has a critical role on mood? How about activity? Specifically exercise. Okay, so that's one of the things that has a direct beneficial effect on mood. Often people feel very amotivated to do that when they're depressed, okay? So there's a phenomenon called anhedonia. Anhedonia's got two parts to it. It's the loss of interest in doing the things that you would normally enjoy doing, and the loss of pleasure in doing the things that you would normally enjoy doing. So oftentimes people have the loss of interest, but not necessarily the loss of pleasure, okay? So if that is the case, you can improve your mood, but you sort of need to force yourself to do the things. But once you actually get going with that, you get a mood lift, okay? And you can capitalize on that. So bear that in mind, that anhedonia affecting both the motivation to do things and the pleasure. If you're still getting the pleasure, you just got to punch through the motivation issue, okay? So schedule it, okay? Make yourself accountable to someone. Get a partner to help you out with it, whatever it takes, but you want to get it done. Okay, interestingly, activity and exercise probably plays a role in modulating inflammation to some degree. The next big category is stress. So that's huge. I mean, that's worth, you know, a huge conversation in its own right, and we're going to get to that at some point. It does it through something called the HPA axis affecting cortisol and blah, blah, blah. I don't want to get bogged down in the biology of it. Needless to say, stress is massive. Where's the stress coming from? Okay, so you know, probably the biggest one is things that are unresolved, issues, problems that just don't have a resolution as yet, and they are just causing rumination and really getting under your skin. So that's a huge one. Identifying those issues is going to be critical. And we actually get into that on one of our other clips called Wired and Tired, which really kind of gets into unpacking the thoughts to help you recognize what's going on, crystallizing those thoughts. Yep. Deciding if the issue is solvable or unsolvable. Yep. And if it's solvable, formulating a next action that you can do to sort of move that issue along so you feel like you're getting some resolution on that, okay? And sort of timelining that too, so it doesn't just feel like you're stalling, all right? So that's huge, do check that out, okay? Other sources of stress? Just chaos, the lack of order in your life, the lack of order in your predicament. Chaos is a massive source of stress, okay? Relationship stuff, I mean, that might sort of also link to the unresolved issues. But again, these are, I think, the three most common potent causes of stress, okay? And identifying if one of these issues is happening in your life can go a long way to improving your stress, okay? And it's actually worth it. I'm going to do 2 arrows from stress to mood because it's such a big impact, okay? It's such a big impact. The good news here is activity and exercise can have a stress modulating role, okay? So there's various things that can modulate stress. Check out our other clip where we talk about meditation, mindfulness practices and that kind of thing. That can have a massive impact, but you need to start somewhere. Sometimes it's easier to start with activity. All right, what else on mood? What else on mood? Okay, big one is grief. Okay, if you like, it's normal. Okay, when grief-stricken to have a sad mood, how could it not be? Grief is a normal, essential part of human existence. If you like, grief is sort of the cost of love. It's, you know, it's the interest you pay on attachments when you lose those attachments. And so grief is normal, and there's no sort of timetable for the resolution of grief. If it's going on and impacting your life, it might be worth getting help. speaking about impacting your life. Okay, trauma has a massive, massive impact on mood, okay? And different kinds of traumas have different effects. For example, childhood trauma can hugely affect people. That it can really echo into their whole sense of identity and their whole sense of self. It's actually probably worth. Oops. Identity. Kind of purpose and role. So some of these things, working with a psychologist, can be really kind of helpful. The dealing with trauma, dealing with childhood stuff, looking at identity stuff. It's pretty tough to do this work by yourself. It's pretty tough to do this work by yourself. The medication, look, medication is really important in sort of getting the ball rolling. Not everyone needs it, okay? But it's here's how I think about it. Let's imagine the predicament of because we need to address the whole thing. Let's imagine someone walks into an emergency department and they've got a snake clamped to their leg, injecting poison into them. What's the doc going to do? Okay, well, probably he's going to get some anti-venom into you, and that's going to make you feel a lot better. Fantastic. But then if the doc sort of sends you on your way and the snake is still clamped to your leg, well, guess what? You're going to have to come back tomorrow. And sort of that's kind of what the medication does. It's not really resolving the underlying stuff. It might be buying you time so you can then resolve the underlying stuff, or maybe your situation's lousy, but that's going to normalize, all right? So what I'd say about medication is it's extremely helpful, but what I would urge you to do is address this other stuff if it's there, okay? If all you're doing is taking the medication, the chances are when you stop taking the medication, if you haven't dealt with this stuff, the mood problems are going to come back. Yep. So medication has an important role, but dealing with some of the root causes is critical. Now, there's tons of other stuff that could contribute, all right? But here's a starting point, all right? This stuff you'd work on with a psychologist, maybe here too if you can't do it yourself. Check out our worksheets. Activity, exercise, again, you might need advice from an appropriate person about that. Dealing with inflammation, the medical stuff. Identify your root causes as best as you can and seek help to rectify them. Thanks a lot, guys.